Life after COVID-19, lessons from past pandemics surveys historic epidemics and pandemics of infectious diseases, searching for insight into our future and our lives in the wake of COVID-19. In the wake of the French Revolution in 1789, the slaves on Saint Domingue, known today as Haiti, revolted against the French plantation owners. Under Toussaint Louverture, many of them fled into the mountains and launched a guerrilla war against their former masters. In 1802, Napoleon resolved to put down the revolt. His objectives were twofold. First, the colony was regarded as the wealthiest colony in the Caribbean. The colony was regarded as the wealthiest in the Caribbean. It produced vast quantities of coffee and sugar. Napoleon wanted to restore that revenue to the French treasury. More importantly, at the time, France still controlled the Louisiana Territory. The watershed west of the main branch of the Mississippi. It ran from the Gulf of Mexico, north beyond the current Canadian-American border, and from the Mississippi west to the Continental Divide. It comprised approximately 828,000 square miles, 1/4 of the current continental USA. He dispatched a fleet of 65,000 to suppress the revolt in Saint Domingue. At the same time, he assembled an army and a fleet in the Scheldt in preparation for sailing to the Louisiana Territory. The second fleet never sailed because the expeditionary force dispatched to Saint Domingue failed miserably. However, they were not defeated by the rebels. They were defeated by mosquitoes and yellow fever, an infectious disease spread by mosquitoes. Of the 65,000 dispatched to Saint Domingue, 50,000 were dead of yellow fever by the time the expeditionary force returned to France. By the summer, forced to fight in the rainy season, the French troops were suffering unbearably. Leclerc, their commander, wrote to Napoleon, also his brother-in-law, "At this moment, I have 3,600 men in the hospital. In the last fortnight, I have lost 30 to 50 men a day in the colony, and there is no day when 200 to 250 men do not enter the hospital, while no more than 50 come out." Louverture, the rebel leader, had retreated in the face of the French incursions and refused to grant them the battle royale they were seeking. Rather, quite intentionally, he pushed the campaign into the rainy season, knowing the mosquito population would explode and the inevitable consequences would follow. He wrote to one of his senior commanders, "We have to wait for the rainy season, which will rid us of our enemies." His successor, Dessalines, in March 1802, told his troops, "Take courage, I tell you, take courage. The whites from France cannot hold out against us here in Saint Domingue. They will fight well at first, but soon they will fall sick and die like flies." There are two interesting points about this. The first is the limited number of casualties. 50,000 in pandemic terms is a very small number. But in this instance, the expeditionary force was a virgin population. The disease was endemic in Saint Domingue, and most of the permanent residents were immune. The expeditionary force, none of them had any immunity, which explains the phenomenally high mortality rate. The second point is, despite the limited number of fatalities, its consequences altered the course of North American history. In 1804, with Saint Domingue now independent, Napoleon sold the Louisiana Territory to the United States of America. Had the invasion of Saint Domingue succeeded, had the French then exploited the Louisiana Territory, the consequence would have been a continental United States becoming an impossibility. But because infectious disease defeated Napoleon and Saint Domingue, the United States developed into the transcontinental nation that it is today. Limited casualties, profound geopolitical consequences.